called Doing Business in Korea. We all welcome you to this webinar together with our partners, and we have a full agenda with a lot of great speakers here to give you the insights about Korea. And as you have got it in the email, as I said it, we have many speakers here today with us, and we will of course have the possibility to both ask questions in the end of this seminar, but also if you have questions, write them in the chat and we will take care of them, of course. And my name is Sasan Shaba. I work as a director for international cooperation at Ignite Sweden and CISP. We at Ignite, we work very much and focusedly on creating startup corporate collaborations. We do this every day, and we are about 25 people that works with this, both on national level, international level, and also with public side, not only corporates. We are non-profit. We are founded by 5 incubators and 2 science parks in Sweden. And as I said, we are part of CISP, Swedish Incubators and Science Parks. That's the member organization or association for the Swedish innovation ecosystem. So we work very closely to our local incubators all over Sweden, scouting the right technologies, the right startups for the corporates. We have done this since 2017. We have a process for this, of course, of how we do it, and we deep dive in the needs of the corporates on the public side, and from there we try to identify the right startups for them to meet during our match days. We have done this in 10 countries. We have done over 4,000 tailored meetings. We have been working with over 700 startups. With that said, we have a database with over 2,000 startups that we work around, but of course also outside that database. And as you see here, we have been working with over 200 corporates and public organizations. Our focus is, of course, to create business between the startups and the corporates and the public organizations. And we have some key metrics that we always measure. One of them is, of course, follow-ups. With that said, it's always a corporate that decide or a public organization that decide which startups they want to follow up with after the matchmaking. And we have a hit rate of 50% of the meetings that actually gets into next meetings and several meetings to initiate or to identify if there is a commercial collaboration or pilot that could happen between these 2 players. And of course, another measurement that we always do is the commercial collaborations. That is our definite main goal. And we have done over 230 commercial collaborations since 2017. And this webinar is, of course, a part of these type of matchmakings. It is to create knowledge and inspire and activate different players to actually understand South Korea, and also to work with the country, of course, from between Sweden and South Korea. With that said, I would like to go over to Vinnova and Kim Silvasti, who is a country manager for South Korea. Welcome to the scene, Kim.
Thank you so much. Let's see if I can start sharing my presentation. I hope you see my presentation good. Perfect. I would again like to very happily welcome you to this webinar on business and innovation in South Korea. I am the country manager for South Korea with Sweden's innovation agency Vinnova. My name is Kim Silvasti. First, some words about innovation, Vinnova, and our international work. We all need to work across sector boundaries towards common goals and involve and include each other to have real effect and make necessary and significant changes in our societies. Innovation is more important than ever, and time is running out. Our mission is to lay the ground for innovation that makes a difference. We need to innovate in the broadest sense. A strong commitment to keep innovating together is key, and to continuously nurture a culture of collaboration, daring to take risk together and experiment continuously with new ideas, daring to move fast and forward. Therefore, we believe that we need to innovate the way we innovate to reach the global goals. As a government agency, we have an important role to play to make this happen. We support civil society, industry, academia, startups, municipalities, and many more to come together. We welcome you all to join us in this innovation journey to achieve the global goals. Vinnova focuses on 10 areas where we take a unified approach to stimulate innovation in a broad sense. There are 5 societal challenges and 5 innovation capabilities. They have many things in common, and we work across area borders. The societal challenges that are important for us to succeed in creating a sustainable future are sustainable industry, sustainable food systems, mobility, precision health, and sustainably built environments. We focus on cross-sector perspectives and innovation capabilities needed to meet the societal challenges. It is about digital transformation, ecosystems, competence supply, a transformative public sector, civil society, and emerging innovations. So at the moment, we have 11 strategically chosen countries, where South Korea is one. We also have 3 locations where we have physical presence, those being Silicon Valley, Brussels, and Tel Aviv. And what role does Vinnova play as an innovation agency internationally? We note that we need to take on a broader role, not only as a provider of funding, but as an agent of change, sharing our expertise. For us, it is important to identify possibilities and areas of importance where we can make an impact and to mobilize missions around them. In our international work, we have 3 toolboxes. Identify is about finding areas where we need to strengthen the ability to innovate to, for example, achieve the Agenda 2030 goals. Based on the needs and opportunities that we identify, we initiate appropriate efforts to mobilize around them and strengthen the ability to innovate in those areas. It can be about opening up for and encouraging collaborations nationally and internationally to enable change at the system level. Funding is, of course, about us initiating calls for funding to promote innovation. In the 11 countries, we gather our work in international innovation initiatives. They are neutral Swedish platforms aimed at strengthening Sweden's strategic promotion of innovation. These initiatives and locations are based on areas of importance for Sweden, interest of actors in the Swedish innovation system, the inclusion of different actors, and the interest of the partner country. And now we jump straight to our Sweden-Korea Innovation Initiative and some of the activities we have in planning. From the top left, you may see that there is an Eureka Eurostars call that closes soon. And then going into next year, we kick it off with Sweden Innovation Days, where there will be a Korea-focused digital booth, as well as matchmaking with the help of Ignite. You can also see that there will be several other matchmaking opportunities through KIAT and EEM during the year. For those who find their consortia and partners, there will be support on how to write applications for the upcoming Eurostars and cluster calls. To sum up, please contact me for your Korea-related questions, connect with our LinkedIn group, and check out the KIAT matchmaking platform. Over to you, Sasa.
Thank you so much. Kim, for your presentation. Interesting insights from your side. With that said, I would like to welcome our next guest. Also, that we have a Korean Startup Center in Stockholm that we really would love to highlight in this webinar. And I would like to welcome Chun Kim, Managing Director of K Startup Center Stockholm. The scene is yours.
Thank you, Sasa. Let me share my slides. Okay, I think it's done, and Hi, my name is Chun Kim, and I am Managing Director of Counsellor Center in Stockholm. Thank you for having me to this valuable session, and so excited to be part of this interesting webinar. And from now, I'd like to introduce Startup Center Stockholm, who we are and what we are doing in Stockholm to support Korean startups entering the Swedish market. And hope all of you can have a good picture of Korea business landscape with this session. First of all, Startup Center is a non-profit global business unit under the Korean Ministry of Startups. Yes, in South Korea, there is a Ministry of Startups officially, and I believe it shows how much Korean government emphasizes the importance of startup companies to scale up and try to encourage young talents to actively enter into startup scenes at the moment. And I know Sweden has known as a unicorn factory in Europe with its strong startup ecosystem, but I can proudly say that Korea is rapidly becoming another huge startup hub in Asia with more than 50 new unicorn startups. And our main mission here is supporting promising Korea-based startups, expanding their businesses into Sweden and other European markets. And basically, we provide accelerating programs for Korean startups, inviting them to Stockholm physically, and invite actually via various and other various events or conferences and other programs in European region. And actually, we are part of COSME, which is the biggest Korean governmental fund in for startup companies with $15 billion of asset. And so I can say we have a great networks in South Korea, include not just startups, but including investors and VCs. And we want to be the strong platform interconnecting Korean venture ecosystems with Swedish companies and also startups. Basically, the idea of Startup Center Stockholm is firstly discussed in 2019 when the Korean President Moon visited Sweden with business leaders in South Korea, and both summits agreed to closely cooperate each other to promote active collaboration between two countries. And based on the agreement, Startup Center was newly opened in Stockholm last year. And actually, in an original plan, all the programs were planned to be conducted in Stockholm, but due to the COVID situation, every program had to convert it into the virtual program until this summer. And finally, from the last month, 12 people from 9 Korean startups actually moved to Stockholm, and they are participating in accelerating program with us for 8 weeks at the moment. If I give more details about our activities, they can be categorized in 2 areas. And first one is startup accelerating program with Epicenter. And the other thing is startup supporting programs from us. For the startup accelerating program, we select around 20 Korea-based startups actually, and mainly in topics of AI and sustainability, preparing their Series A or B investment mainly. Hopefully from Swedish VC like Northzone or CVCs like H&M, IKEA, Ericsson, and so on. So during this program, we are mainly focusing on connecting them to the relevant partners or potential clients with the matchmaking sessions with our partners. And we are trying to provide one-stop packaging for the startup which want to enter into the Swedish market for physical office space to legal advices. And we also provide market analysis consulting project with our partner Ernst & Young, and as of now, 5 startups are developing go-to-market strategy together with us. In order to find more and more business opportunities for Korean startups, we closely communicate with various organizations, both in Sweden and South Korea. And actually, we've signed agreement with Ignite Sweden and also with Wallenberg Foundation, Swedish Ministry of Enterprise to support Korean startups. And we have successfully arranged more than 300 meetings for our portfolio startups with leading global companies in Europe. And as you can find in this slide. And lastly, these 20 companies on the screens are our portfolio startups selected by us for this year. And we are currently with 10 very interesting startups at Stockholm, which are in the red circle in this slide. And all of them have been invested by leading VCs, analysts a couple of times in South Korea, and have awarded many global prizes with their innovative technologies. And half of them is specialized in AI technology, and another half is related to the sustainability topics. And there is also one fintech company specialized in blockchain technology for the central bank. And I cannot open the details now, but some of them are already discussing fundraising opportunities with some of Nordic and European venture capitals, and also a business cooperation with Swedish companies. And so if any of you want to learn more about these interesting startups from South Korea or want to discuss with them, please don't hesitate to contact us or just visit us. We are at Epicenter. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Chun. It's really interesting to see your work and what you're doing for your startups here in Stockholm. And of course, we want to give the opportunity for all of you to connect with Chun regarding K Startup Center Stockholm. With this said, I would like to go to our next speaker. We have the pleasure to have with us Anders Hektor, who is Science and Innovation Counsellor at the Office of Science and Innovation at the Embassy of Sweden in Seoul. Anders, the scene is yours, and I'm gonna share your presentation, and you can just let me know when you want to take the next step.
Right, thank you, Sasan. You can take the next slide immediately. All right, so I'm Anders Hektor. There are a number of science and innovation offices around the world. You can see 6 here, but there's actually one opening in London most recently. Still looking for a counselor there, I think. And this shows how important Sweden thinks South Korea is as a country to be present in. And what we do is we focus on increasing collaboration in science, innovation, and higher education. So we are working in several different areas. And when it comes to higher education, I can mention we have a number of South Korean master level students studying in Sweden for 1 or 2 years all the time. And they are always interested in internship positions. So if you have any of those, please contact me afterwards. Next slide, please, Sasan. So it's easy to work. I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's very pleasurable to work with innovation in South Korea, because coming from Sweden, because we're both innovation leaders and we want to see ourselves as innovation leaders as well. Similarly, but also differently. South Korea's economy is 3 times the size of Sweden's economy. So it's a bit bigger, and you can see here, as an example, how many the top 10 patenting companies in Korea and in Sweden, and how I want to show how the few in the top are very much dominating. And of course, on the Swedish side, Ericsson is dominating with about 75% of all of the top 10 patenting companies. And on the Korean side, you have a number of similarly large companies. Samsung Electronics, together with LG Electronics and LG Chem, represent 85% of the top 10 companies. And of course, one patent can be enough for one company, but to get an impression of the metrics, this is an important picture. I think it says something really interesting. It can be surprising to see what other companies are showing up on it as well. So both our countries are doing large R&D investments, both public R&D investments, but also private sector investments. Sizably more than many other countries are doing, as you can draw as a conclusion from this page as well. South Korea is investing 4.5%, maybe even up to 5% this year of GDP in R&D when you put both private sector and public sector together. That will put them in the top first or second place. Sweden comes in third, fourth, or fifth place, depending on from year to year. We're at about 3.33 to 0.5% of GDP. So there's a big jump. Next slide, please. And this money is invested in all kinds of different efforts, and it has been in South Korea for quite some time. It doesn't have an extremely long history, but a very enthusiastic history when it comes to R&D investments throughout, starting in the 60s with investing in chip assembly and starting to be a player when it comes to production. And they did it very successfully so they went over to modifications in the 70s, starting to produce their own components, and quickly became leaders in some components, specifically in the television industry. And since the 80s, they have been more focusing on innovation, and there too, they have become innovation leaders, again in the flat panel technology, but also in chipset. You know, of course, that there's only 2 companies in the world that are producing the most high-performing 5G chips, and that's Taiwan and South Korea. And now Samsung said that from 2025 they will be mass delivering 2 nanometer microchipsets, which is quite impressive, and they may even be the first in doing that. But they're also leading in other areas and have the ambition going forward to be leading in other areas as well. There is a very strong innovation push and industry push in hydrogen as an energy carrier. And I heard recently from Hyundai presenting at the fair that by 2030, they expect that their fuel cell technology will be price comparable with battery electric vehicles, either by having a very much cheaper production of the tank and the fuel cell stack, but also to perhaps reducing having a battery altogether, and instead throttling the fuel cell. So that would be an interesting development as well. They didn't say that, though, I should say that, but that would be one way of making it cheaper. So there is extensive public support for innovation, and this kind of technology is also public supported. So let's have a look at clusters and then go to policy sandboxes. So next slide, please. Of the top 100 clusters in the world, so of the 100 clusters that are ranked the highest by WIPO and compared by Global Innovation Index, both Sweden and Korea have 3 such cluster areas in the top 100, which I think is fantastic. Of course, Stockholm, Lund, Malmö, and Gothenburg, we're very proud of all of them, and they're doing fantastic things. And in South Korea, you have Seoul, Daejeon, and Busan. And Seoul, it's the northwest area of the country with about half of the population. So calling it a cluster may be a little bit of a stretch, but still, it's pretty impressive. And there are different kinds of cluster resources, and I'll show you some different ones. So next slide, please. These are regional technoparks. They're a bit oldish, but you find them all over the country. And there is another group of clusters called Innopolis, and you find them too all over the country. Not as many as these, but with a map of them overlaid, you would have more clusters. And more recently, you have what we would call the innovation clusters. And these are based on support for industry and for manufacturing, but also universities. They're associated to universities sometimes, but not always. Next slide, please. These are the ministries, agencies, and organizations, or some of them at least, that are supporting these clusters and innovation efforts. So, Bill Gibson said the future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. And it's very much the case in South Korea as well. But these agencies and institutions are making sure that the future will be distributed evenly throughout the country, which is an admirable effort. And as often is the case, so are these not fantastically coordinated between each other. They are even overlapping and maybe sometimes even competing, as they are championed by different ministries or different agencies. But you find them in governments and ministries and regional governments and cities and universities as well. It has a very high profile. Many want to have these support functions. To this, you should add, of course, private efforts as well. We don't have any of those on this list. This is only the public ones. Samsung SDS is one, but all the chaebols conglomerates have support functions. And the takeaway from this, I think, is that there's plenty of opportunity and there's a lot of good intention when it comes to national, regional, and local level support. Next slide, please. And there's another effort that's more of a national support as well. So legislation in South Korea can be tricky because what the law doesn't explicitly say is permitted is not permitted. It's can be forbidden, not forgiven. And this can be challenging because in the digital domain or new technology domain, it's hard to know what is permissible by law and what's not, if the laws are many years old and haven't been prepared for those kinds of technologies. For that reason, they have several areas of sandboxing that have become very popular, and you can see them here. Financial innovation, industry convergence, and ICT convergence are three technology areas of sandboxing that are where fintech is dominating when it comes to the number of projects and the size of investments as well. And then you have, on top of that, you have special zones and or even R&D zones and smart cities, which you also can consider a zone. Next slide, please. And on that one, you can see these zones, the regions. There are 7 regions with different focus on them. So these are also opportunities for working in new tech areas, but it shows a little bit of the complexity that you can have when you're doing that in South Korea. So before I wrap up, I want to say a few words about culture. I'm sure you'll hear more about that from other speakers coming. Next slide, please. But you can see on Sweden and Korea, to make some very simplistic comparisons just to get a feel. Whereas in Sweden, we have a high level of trust in institutions and in people. In Korea, there's more trust in groups, and those groups can be defined as conglomerates or other groups, and you will have subgroups within companies as well, where you build the trust and where you also keep the trust. So that can also be a bit of a challenge to get into this context, but totally worth it, and there are ways of doing it. In Sweden, everybody speaks English, but in Korea, language can be a barrier. Koreans can be embarrassed about speaking English, and you may need a gatekeeper, somebody on site that will, work with you. They do know how to speak English. They're actually quite good at it. They just it's a bit of a threshold sometimes to do that. I think maybe Chun will. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. In Sweden, we have not so much of a hierarchy, but it's the hierarchy and titles are more important in Korea. This may be changing also. It's a generational thing, I think, with more people having been abroad and so on. There is a bigger tolerance for more of a flat hierarchy. We have, comparing with the welfare system in Sweden, there is a weaker welfare system in Korea, which is relevant because it can influence perhaps risk aversion. If you gamble on a business, on an innovation or a startup, you may be gambling more than you're gambling in Sweden. It could be, the future education of your kids, because you're going to have money to pay for it. Rule of law, of course, applies in South Korea as well, but it's complicated, and it can be tricky to navigate those areas. So just interacting with Koreans, you will find that they are very business-oriented and pragmatic, but having a partner can be very helpful to have get over the language barrier, culture barrier, to get into networks and to have a gatekeeper. You can, of course, build such partners. These differences are obviously not universal, but you can find them. But many have studied abroad, and they have read, the same books that we have about disruptive innovation and so on. But if you're prepared for differences when you come to South Korea and you have a tolerance, then you will be just fine. It's a fantastic country with highly educated people, very, very motivated, very skilled, and you will find the best quality in many things here, better than you can find anywhere else in the world. Thank you. That was my last slide, I think.
Thank you so much, Anders. Very interesting insights from your side. And I would just wonder, is there anybody who have any questions? We will have a Q&A session later on, but if there's any question right now that you want to highlight, you're most welcome to put it in the chat for Anders. Otherwise, I would like to go to the next speaker that we're having with us today. Thank you so much, Anders, for your session and your presentation. Information about Eureka's programs, Eurostars, and we have with us from Vinnova, Lindmark, who's Program Director and Deputy NPC for Eurostars at Vinnova. Annie, the scene is yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sasan. I hope you can hear me well. I will also share my screen. So yeah, very nice to be here today and speak about the opportunities that are within Eureka and the Eurostars program. As Sasan said, my name is Annie, and I also work as Kim for Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency. And Vinnova is the contact point for Eurostars when it comes to Swedish participants. So today I will briefly go through some practicalities about the program and how to apply, what is the criteria, and how does it look like for specifically Swedish applicants. So I will start off by saying something about Eureka, because Eureka is the international network which Eurostars belongs within. And Eureka is a public network for international cooperation. It's focused on R&D and innovation. And we have the Eureka network have 45 countries participating. And it has been since a network since 1985 and has over the years given out grants to over 7,500 R&D projects. And through Eureka, you can find access to public funding. It's not only Eurostars, it's also clusters calls. We have networking projects, etc. They also work a lot with boosting expansion to new markets, having different specific calls for different markets. And it's all about really driving international collaborations. So I would definitely recommend you to also check out the other calls that Eureka has. But today the focus will be on Eurostars, and Eurostars is a really large international funding program for innovative SMEs. And here is the focus about creating research-oriented and innovative product, processes, services, which has a commercialization point of view, and of course in international cooperation. And when looking at kind of the goal of the program and what it gives you as a participant, it is really opening up for having access to new knowledge, opportunities to test new markets. We have participants saying that they got new customers, but they could also test on existing customers. They could get access to knowledge from another party in another country, but also, of course, heightening the innovation capacity in these projects. And we talk about Eurostars as an SME program because the SME is always in the driving seat of these projects, which means that all of the Eurostars projects need to have an innovative SME that is kind of the project coordinator and who holds the project together. But you could also participate if you're a university or a research institute or a large company. So the consortia can really look like everything from 2 SMEs going in together, or 1 SME, 1 university, and 1 large company. Often we see a combination of actors. It could be, for example, a Swedish SME going together with a larger company that has the market and the market knowledge of that country together with a university with that expert research. But as you see here, the most of the participants in the Eurostars program, 70% are SMEs, and then we have a little bit lower percentages of the other actors that are participating. Eurostars, we have 36 countries that are participating in this program. And as you can see on this map, it's not only in Europe, it's of course South Korea, it's Canada, it's other also countries outside Europe that are participating in the program that you can also though apply funding with. Also, I want to say that you can participate with a country that's not a Eurostars country, but that country cannot apply for funding. So you need to be at least 2 Eurostars countries applying in a project together. But you can have a third party also outside the 36, but that project partner needs to apply with self-funding, as you say. Moving over to talking a little bit more about how a typical Eurostars project look like. This Eurostars program has been running now for many, many years. So this is historically, but it's around 3 to 4 participants joining in the consortium. Often it's around 2 to 3 countries that are going together. It's about 30 months long projects. So it's not very long projects. Now we have seen more and more actually 2 years to 3 years projects. Average project cost for the whole project usually is around 1.4 million euros. And specifically the Eurostars program is known for being a close to market program. It's industry driven and it's bottom up. So you can apply within any technology area, in any market area. And it's really very, very few guidelines in what you can apply with. So it's really up to the applicants and the projects. But looking at the numbers, we have the largest areas of technology is electronics, IT, and telecom. Around 31% in the portfolio is within that technology area. And if we look at the market area, we have a lot of medical, health related and life science projects that are being accepted and funded. Also, I often say that more participants or larger projects is not always always better. Of course, if you have a perfect consortia where you are a lot of project partners, you should definitely go for that. But it's always best to look at the project you're aiming to do and find the specific partners that are suitable for that project. So it's not better to just add one country or add a different project partner just to have a larger project, because that's not in the criteria or something that is being evaluated. If we look at the Swedish participants, Swedish participants in the projects have been very successful. We have around 20% of applicants that have received funding. And when I say this means that it's an international project with Swedish participants. So it's not a Swedish project, but it's international Eurostars project with Swedish participants that have been 20% around that have been received funding the last cutoffs. And the recent calls also, Sweden has been in the top of both number of applicants and highest ranking. And we can also see that we have gotten in more and more Swedish and South Korean projects applying for Eurostars. Currently, we have 6 running projects that have that collaboration, and hopefully we will see even more the coming cutoffs. On a more practical note, let me go into, it's a lot of text here, but let me go into what is actually applicable here if you are interested in applying. So if we start up with who can apply to Eurostars, as I said in the beginning, it's primarily aimed at small and medium-sized enterprises, but you can also be larger company, universities, or research institutes that are participating. But the SME always need to be coordinating. And then if that SME is Swedish or South Korean or German or any other country, that is up to the project to decide on. But it needs to be one SME in the project that are the main coordinator. New for Eurostars 3, because we're just entering a new program period, is that the target group has broadening. Before we had a specific criteria where we said that you needed to be an R&D performing SME, which actually was a formal criteria, but now we have broadened up the target group. So now it says that you need to be an innovative SME. So it's a lot more actors actually that can apply now. Yeah, you need to have at least 2 individual parties from at least 2 Eurostars countries being in a project. Going over to what you can apply for, it is very broad. As I mentioned, you can apply in any market or technology area. It is rather short projects up to a maximum 3 years, and we have this close to market parameter. We really want to see that this project has, even if it's a research or innovation focused project, we want to see that there's actually capabilities of taking this to the market and commercializing it within 2 years after the end of the project. And then we have some budget formal criteria that you can read more on the Eurostars page. But for example, also to tie up to that, that I said that this is an SME driven program. The total budget, for example, needs to be owned at least 50% of the SMEs in the project. So also have the power of the project is within the SMEs. And when looking at how much you can apply for, here it is important that if you are teaming up with another international party, that you check what the criteria are for that country, because Eurostars is a co-created, co-funded program. So in this case, you need to check what is what do we have different national funding bodies rules and applicant money that you can get. So these are the numbers for the Swedish participants. It's a bit the same for the other countries, but important to check with the national funding body in the country that your project partner is in, what they have. So for Swedish participants, you can apply a maximum for 5 million Swedish kronor for the Swedish project part. If you lack or don't have a Swedish SME in your project, you can apply for maximum 2 million for the Swedish part. And then we have some percentages of how much we cover the costs. So SMEs, we cover 50% of the costs, larger company, 30%. And if you are academia, university, research institutes, we fund 70% of the costs. You can read more about our national rules at our website, and it's also on the Eureka page. You can choose a country when you log in, and then you can see what is applicable for that specific country. Here are the 3 main criteria that are being evaluated in these projects. It's an international evaluation pool that is being picked for all of the applicants. So it's not Vinnova or any other of the other national funding body who actually makes the larger part of the evaluation. It is an international evaluation part that does that. But it is quality and efficiency of the implementation. It is the impact, the market commercialization, and the excellence, the degree of innovation that is primarily looked at. And new for also this program period is that it's a larger weight on the sustainable development goals, economic, environmental, and social impact that you have as a project. But you can go into Eureka and Eurostars website and also find the guidelines, finding what is actually being evaluated, how these different criteria stand to each other. And when you are applying to Eurostars, we have now, as Kim said, a cutoff that is being closed the 4th of November. If you're not available or will make it to apply on that one, it's usually around 2 calls per year. And they are kind of closing and opening. So it's almost always an opportunity that you can apply for. And you apply as an international project together through the Eurostars website. And there's a lot of guidelines and help that you can get through that website. For example, all the questions that you are going to need to answer in the application platform is available to see beforehand. And then, as I said, the application goes through this international evaluation process. Next slide, I will show you 3 steps that mainly are looked through. And if the project is finally approved, it is the country's national funding body that will fund the applicants from that country. So for Swedish partners, it's Vinnova, who's the NFB, and we are also the contact point for the Swedish partners and the one who will pay out the grants. For Korea, it's Kia. So that is how kind of the process works. The evaluation process timeline looks like this. So if you would be able to apply the 4th of November, this is how the process will look like. You will, in the mid-December, been going through the first remote evaluation. You will know if you passed legal and financial viability check, and then the highest ranked project will move over to the second evaluation, which is another evaluation pool of experts that will look at your application. And then in early February, you will know how it actually went with your project and which projects that actually will be approved for funding. Yes, and Swedish participants can apply for support and help through our support office. I would advise you to go into eusme.se to see more what support you can get. Last but not least, I just want to give a heads up again. Don't miss the deadline if you're interested. It's on 4th of November. There is a recorded webinar that Eureka Eurostars have put up on their website, which you can see their tips and tricks. We also at Vinnova had an information session about this earlier in September, which is on our website. And of course, read carefully, reach out to previous funded projects and see if they have any advices for you. And if you have any practical questions, we are a team at Vinnova who works with Eurostars, but also this EUSME support office that you can reach out to if you have any questions. So that was all about Eurostars and the practicalities around this program. I really hope that we will see more projects with South Korean and Swedish participants going forward. I don't think we have time for questions right now, Sasan, right? So if you have any questions, please just write them in the chat and I will try to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Annie. And yes, we will have a short session where we will have Q&As. So let's take it from there. I would like to go to the next speaker, and it is more of how to do business in Korea and what kind of support regarding what Annie talked about, Anders talked about, also. What can Business Sweden offer for you as both startups, corporates, and organizations for that have startups or SMEs? With that said, I would like to welcome Johan Chun, who is country manager for Business Sweden in Korea. Welcome to the scene.
Thank you so much, Sasan, and hi everyone. Sasan, need your help here with the slides. So basically, like Sasan said, I'm representing Business Sweden here in South Korea, and last guy here today to speak. So it's me who stands between you, between the afternoon coffee fika. So I'll try to stay brief for 10 minutes. So I was asked to talk about doing business in Korea, but since I think this is quite diverse group of people listening, and the focus today is of course more smaller companies, SMEs, but also startups. I would focus a little bit on what we can offer in terms of support to enter the Korean market. Before going into that, of course, the compulsory about Business Sweden slide. So Our high-level purpose here, as it says, we help Swedish companies to grow global sales and international companies to invest and expand in Sweden. So, of course, today we talk about Swedish companies, how you can grow internationally and specifically then in Korea. But also we have this invest mission also. So many of the small startups that Chun mentioned for the KSC program were also recruited by Business Sweden, so very happy to cooperate in that field. Okay, we are about, the figure keeps changing, but we are about 400 people. We're present in about 40 countries and 50 offices. And so we have a pretty wide geographical coverage. So I think really one of the benefits that Business Sweden can offer SMEs is that typically as an SME, maybe you don't have the legs and the feet and the manpower to be everywhere where you want to be, but you can virtually be everywhere today. I mean, through the internet and through network organizations like Team Sweden in various markets. And we believe that Business Sweden's network with offices and consultants globally can also help you, like it says here, to be your sales feet on the ground. So if you think about Korea, even before you are in the market, you can be in the market, so to speak, versus your potential clients through Business Sweden.
Johan, you tell me when you want me to change the slide.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm so interested. Please, are you still on the first slide?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So this was the mission. I think we can skip to next.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, now I see the screen. So we are your brains and sales feet on the ground. Okay, next slide, please. So very hands-on then. What can we offer? So we have programs for startups and scale-ups, and for startups we have a program called Leap Accelerator, and this slide is basically, it's a screenshot directly from Business Sweden's webpage. So I just wanted you to see the interface, and if you are in the target group or if you represent an incubator or an accelerator or similar organization, and maybe you have, or private equity for that matter, that work with a lot of companies that you support, or maybe portfolio companies, you could encourage them to go directly into the webpage and just click here and apply and read about more info. But basically, the Leap Accelerator provides tech startups with, like it says, a shortcut to new market investors and customers. And the program is totally free of charge for qualifying companies, and it basically is helping these startups in early phase with coaching and get ready and create like an export plan and prioritization of market and what to think of before exporting. Then we have a program called Catalyst. Catalyst is, I think, a fantastic program. It's a subsidized program, program value of almost 200,000 K. It's a 3-month program for startups, aiming to become scale-ups, and it's heavily subsidized. So the companies who apply and get picked in the Catalyst selection process pay a small fee of only 30,000 Swedish krona, and the rest of the project fee is subsidized then. And Catalyst, you can read more in the application link here, but basically you apply depending on industry, or as we call it within Business Sweden, which ecosystem. So every ecosystem will have certain calendar date when they have applications that you can read more on the webpage for your specific industry. And also, if you get picked to come and pitch, then there will be a pitching session in front of a jury, and the jury consists not only of Business Sweden people, but a variety of people from both venture capitalists, from government, from industry, and from Business Sweden. So the final picked companies can continue further with the Catalyst program. A very good program. Then for SMEs, and I believe we all share the same definition. So it's an EU definition of SME. So quite generous definition. You can have a turnover of up to 50 million euro. You can have up to, yes.
Just let me know
sorry.
when you want
Next
to change
slide,
slide.
Yes, I guess I carried
Perfect.
away. Yeah, next slide, please. So for SMEs, yes, if you are an SME according to the EU definition, so 50 million euro in turnover and 249 employees maximum, and then there are a couple of other criteria that you need to fulfill, but those are the main ones. And then you qualify for several services, and many of them are free. So I'll just read them from the top to bottom. So the export coaching, that's exactly what it sounds like. So very similar to the LEAP program. So you get assigned a coach in Sweden, regional, close to where you're located, who help you as a bouncing board, basically, with market, analysis, strategic advice to develop your export plan. So this is a close collaboration. So it's not like a consulting project where Business Sweden consultant just goes away and gives you a thick report, but it's really a collaboration. And this is completely free of charge. So I think this is an excellent tool if you're a startup or a small company just thinking about internationalization. Then we have a service called export validation. And this is when you are a company, you say you are maybe in a niche market and I'm just making something up, maybe you're exporting, tailor-made straps for cell phones. And then you think maybe a few markets in Asia Pacific would be relevant, but you're not really sure about which market, but you have a hypothesis that maybe this would work in Singapore and Australia. And then you want to try that before really entering full steam ahead in that market. Then export validation could be the tool for you, or the project form for you. Then we can help you with a couple of questions just to validate the potential in the market. So in this case, it could be some desktop research, checking, the number of cell phones sold, what's the trend of the cell phone use, what kind of accessories do people use in the market for cell phone, etc. So it gives you a little bit of insight before doing a full market analysis, so to speak. Then typically, if the export validation project is successful, or if you see some potential for your product or services, then the next logic step would be to continue with the export project. And the export project is a more tailor-based project based on what you need then. So it could be, for instance, finding a partner. Anders mentioned the importance of having a local partner. I totally agree with that. So in markets like Korea, and able to enter successfully, I would say 95% of the companies we support, initially the first step would be to go in with a distributor or an agent. So that's typically a first step. So, and we always say, when you do this, you should do your homework. You should not only pick someone you met at an industry fair or someone you find, by Googling. So this is typically what the export project is, but it could also be tailored. It could be based on, market intelligence needs that you need. Maybe you found some potential in the market validation, but you want to go deeper and really understand, the market for your product or services. We can, go deeper and do interviews, etc. And this project too is 50% subsidized, and the scope depends a little bit. So it's in dialogue with the participating SME and the project team at Business Sweden. And then maybe you are in a position where you are already shipping, or hello, do you still hear me?
We hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm on my phone. I got a call. So if you're thinking about export rules and regulations, then we have a department in Stockholm, a trade facilitation department that can help you for free with guidance on export and FTA rules, delivery terms, labeling requirements, payment options, etc. And that's also completely free of charge. So a lot of good supported project forms here that I think could be interesting for SMEs and startups. So that was pretty much it. I wanted to keep it pretty basic and hands-on, but either if you are in the target group or if you represent a facilitator helping SMEs or startup, feel free to share. I'm sure Sasan, you will share the presentation with the audience afterwards. So either you go to Business Sweden's web and search there, or click the link provided here, and then you come to the landing page for our SME services. And you can also, of course, contact me or the team here in Seoul directly at the provided email. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be presenting here. Back to you, Sasan.
Thank you so much, Johan, for your presentation. Pleasure to have you here. And of course, all the support that we can give the SMEs, the startups, our incubators, science box, corporates is of importance here. With that said, we can jump in immediately in the next part and the closing part of it. And of course, now we can take a Q&A from all of you that are interested in putting some questions to the table for all our speakers here. This is the time where you have it. And of course, we have some next steps from our side also, together with our partners in this. Is there any questions that you want to know more about, or that you want to ask for the speakers?
Well, I can ask if it's possible.
It's of course possible.
I have a feeling that we forgot to notify the other part that we are going to collaborate with them. I mean, we are talking about things, our intention to make business with South Korea, but where are practical steps to do that, except for some guidelines or some help with transportation? I don't know what, but why Sweden, and how exactly Swedish companies can collaborate with South Korea practically? Do we need them more, or they need us? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do somebody of the speakers want to take that question?
I can start, and maybe someone can continue. I think it's a matter of both needing each other. South Korea needs Sweden, and Sweden needs South Korea. And it's not predictable exactly how or in what way, but it needs to start with having some sort of connection, knowing that there is a technology that is of interest and that is complementary to what you have, or that you have interesting companies that you want to reach out to. So the matchmaking is, of course, something that need to take place. And I wish we could have had more of a matchmaking activities. The Korea Startup Center is doing a fantastic thing with the Startup Center at Epicenter in Stockholm. So that's a good connection, actually. I could advise you to start talking with them and with Chun. But it's a mutual need, and we need a contact. It all starts with people wanting to work with people, I think.
Thank you, Anders.
Maybe I could add a few comments there. So if I understood the question correctly, is how do we practically get started doing business with Korea? And do we need Korea more or Korea needs Sweden more? So it's a pretty general question. So the reply will be pretty general then. But I did what you say, Anders. I think it's really both. But you know, since the nature of the question is so broad, I think it comes down to specifically what product or service can you offer Korea. So like Anders also explained in his session, I mean, Korea is a very advanced country. So it's also tough competition. It is a very big and promising market, but it's also cutthroat, you know, tough competition market. So if you try to enter Korea as an SME with a product that's not really fully developed or does not have the unique edge, then typically, at least from Business Sweden's perspective, we typically advise SMEs to stay out of Korea because you will be eaten up basically by competition. Having said that, there are already more than 500 Swedish companies doing business in Korea, established through distributors or agents, and there are about 120 companies established with their own legal subsidy. And Korea is Sweden's third largest export market in Asia. So only China and Japan are bigger markets. So actually the trade from Sweden to Korea is larger than to India, for instance, to put it in perspective. So there are opportunities, but you need to be well prepared.
Thank you, Johan.
May I also add a quick comment?
Of course.
Thank you. I mean, there are, of course, some areas that are important globally and specifically between Sweden and Korea. And the Koreans are heavily involved in the green transition as well as in digitalization. So if your business is in industry or in digitalization with a focus on AI maybe, could be health, then you have bigger possibilities maybe. And also on the note of something concrete, I could say that Kiat is having a matchmaking in 1 week's time, 27th and 28th of October, with a focus on digital companies. So if you are a digital company, check out the PDF that will be sent out. There is a link to the event, and you need to hook up before the 25th. But there are concrete examples and areas of importance. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for your answer. And I can say also an add-on to that regarding doing more matchmakings. We work very much with corporate startup collaboration. We will have Sweden Innovation Days that I will present very shortly, very soon. But also, Kim, we are planning for doing more of a matchmaking between Sweden and South Korea in the future. Maybe we can come back to that also. That will be focused between startups and corporates. So you got many answers and many possibilities with these answers. Is there any other questions that comes from the audience? Otherwise, I would like to thank you, all of you who presented today, and of course, all of you that participated for today. Some closing remarks about next steps also, of course. We're having some activities regarding actually potentially doing business overall. And as I said, we are doing matchmakings. We have one for AI for public sector that will happen very soon. We have Sweden Canada Startup Match Day on November. Ignite Health Tech, and also on 11th of November. Ignite AI for private sector will happen late November, 24th of November. And of course, Sweden Innovation Days that was mentioned by Kim also. Sweden Innovation Days is it's a conference for 4 days. But also matchmaking between 10 countries, where Korea is one of them, of course, where we are onboarding corporates from Korea, but also startups. But basically, it will be startups and corporates from 10 countries, where Sweden is definitely, of course, one of them. So that's a possibility of getting maybe the first connection on doing commercial collaborations or basically have the opportunity. Of course, the corporates will always decide which startups they want to confirm meetings with and take next steps with. But that's a possibility, of course. We will send everything to you, and this is recorded, so we'll put it, of course, on social media and send it to you, so you have all the information that you need. That's one, of course, and I explained what Sweden Innovation Days is about. You can apply still as a startup. If you're an incubator or science box, you can apply you can make your startups or SMEs apply also. If you're a corporate, you can do the same thing, where we can onboard you to the matchmaking day, of course. We have some activities if you want to get more insights of good examples of corporates that have done a quite interesting journey regarding working with startups, and basically both low tech and deep tech startups, tech startups overall. We have with us L'Oreal as a special guest on Fridays with Ignite, actually this Friday for lunch, if you're interested to participate, both as a corporate or incubator or organization, but of course as a startup. And they will tell how they have been working with us regarding these areas. With that said, you can always contact me if you want to know more about Sweden Innovation Days, and we can guide you. We will send all the presentations to you, so you have it with you for the next steps. And we are doing this type of initiative as part of Sweden Korea Innovation Initiative, as we are supported by Vinnova also. We want to create stronger bridges and collaborations between these two countries, and concrete ones, of course. I see that there's some things in the chat. I'll just check them. Yeah, it's good with links to takeaways immediately, actions that you can take care of course. Thank you so much, Maite, my colleague, and Kim for that. Perfect. I think that with that said, we have 3 minutes left. If there's no other questions, maybe one last question we can take. Maybe not. Super clear. I would like to thank you all for interesting insights and information and call to actions, both from the ones that presented, but of course all the participants, and we will send the information to you to have it with you. Thank you so much, all of you. Pleasure to work with you all, and have a continuously great day.
정말 고마워.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.